Jesus, right? Yeah. I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. All my praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace you wrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'll testify. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Together, sons and daughters, lying, washing water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Oh, our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. This grace you wrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'll testify. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. From the day you're not done, greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe I'm not dead, I'm not done. Greater things are still to come. I believe I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace you wrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'll testify. This is my testimony. Oh, I'm alive. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace you wrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'll testify. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Oh.
This next song that we're doing ties a lot into the story that we're going to hear tonight. It's a bit of a newer song, but it talks about in whatever they've gone through and whatever trials they've been through, whatever tribulations they've been to, they've still found a reason to praise God. So as we sing this next song, just think of the story we're going to hear tonight from two amazing people, and think of how they still have a reason to praise in whatever they've gone through.
I'm at my end, just getting started. I hit a wall, you just walk through. When I face a mountain, you are the maker, so it's God. When I'm out of faith, you are still faithful. When I'm at my worst, you are still good. All of the questions, you are the answer. It all points to you. 'Cause you're the God of the breakthrough. When I'm breaking down, you'll be working a way through. There's no way out. There's one thing I know. You're still on the throne. So whatever you're feeling, still got a reason to praise. Praise, praise.
Out of my wrongs, you are the story. Out of the cross comes rivers of grace. And out of the grave, burst the revival no tomb can contain. 'Cause you're the God of the breakthrough. When I'm breaking down, you'll be working a way through. But there's no way out. This one thing I know, you're still on your throne. So whatever I'm feeling, I still got a reason to praise. Praise, praise. Still got a reason to praise. Praise, praise. Still got a reason to praise. 'Cause when you come around dry bones, they come to life. Desert to paradise, souls just start rolling away. And when you come around, my heart starts to beat again. Lungs stretch to breathe you in. Souls just erupt into praise. And when you come around, dry bones, they come to life. Desert to paradise, souls just start rolling away. 'Cause when you come around, the heart starts to beat again. Lungs stretch to breathe you in. Souls just erupt into praise, praise. 'Cause you're the God of the breakthrough. I'm breaking down, you're still working a way through. When there's no way out, there's one thing I know. You're still on your throne. So whatever I'm feeling, I still got a reason to praise. Praise, praise. I still got a reason to praise. Praise, praise. I still got a reason to praise. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, let the King of my heart be inside myself, the anchor in the waves. Oh, it's my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire on my flames, the anchor of my days. Oh, it's my song. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails. Oh, yes, my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song, 'cause you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good.
You're never gonna let me down. 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 'Cause you're never gonna let me down. 'Cause you are good, you're good. Oh, and you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, and you are good, you're good. Jesus, thank you for this time that we've had to worship you tonight. God, thank you that we still have a reason to praise. Thank you that you never leave us, that you will never let us down. God, I thank you for this time that we've had to worship tonight. God, I thank you for this space. God, I pray for Bob and Robin as they bring their testimony. God, I pray for our time here, that your spirit is here. In your precious one name, I said, amen.
Let's go into our worship team, guys. All right. It is about that time, but before we get to our message, I need you to do me a favor. Look around your chair. If there is toilet paper where you can see, I need you to take it to a trash can. There's one right over here, a big blue one. Any toilet paper. Go. If there's toilet paper around you, grab it, get it to a trash can, please, and thank you. If you have toilet paper on or near you, please take it to the trash. I know, it was a fun game, but we gotta... Thank you. Well, guys, I am super excited because, like I've talked about every week, this is one of my favorite series because I just love hearing people's stories. We talked about the first week how we are a storied people, not just as Christians because we read books, we watch movies, we play video games, we tell stories to our friends. We are all about stories in our lives, and so we get to tell a story with our lives because of the fact that we are Christians, the fact that we do believe in God, and we are a storied people because we get to continue the story, like how the Bible talks about God moving in the lives of people. We get to be a part of that. Get to be a part of those stories, get to tell those stories. And so we've gotten to hear some of those this past couple weeks. And so tonight is our final week of this series, My Story. And so as you may have noticed, tonight we have not one, but two speakers. You may have seen on social media, this is a My Story first, because we knew that just like you guys like to hear from each other, like to hear from your peers, there are some leaders that you may not know their full story. You may not have heard. And so I want to invite Bob and Robin Thomas on up. Coming on up here. Because I know many of you have been praying for them the past couple months, been praying for them with different situations. I'm dying right now. I can't. Well, guys, give it back. Big Naz Youth welcome to Bob and Robin.
I guess I'm going to do all this with you. Bob has no volume.
Hello. That work?
The
Hey
voice
guys,
of
how you
God.
doing? Let me get this out. That was just too funny to review. Sorry about that. First of all, I want to say thank you for listening to us, for Bailey for inviting us to do this. Man, you guys don't know how powerful your prayers have been for me recently when you're praying for me with cancer and I almost died, in December. I mean, I can't speak enough how grateful I am that you guys cared enough to surround me in prayer. Thank you so much, because I'm not done living. I really would like to live a little longer. So I just love doing this. This is what God has called me to do in high school, and we'll learn more about how that all came to come about. Before we get started, there's a couple of passages in Scripture that I want to point us to. Okay, one is very beginning of Genesis, the very beginning of time. God created Adam and Eve, and He set them in this cool garden and kind of gave them everything that they needed. And there was only one thing, that they were not supposed to do. It was just one tree they weren't supposed to eat of. And if you've read the story, you know how the serpent came in and kind of beguiled Eve, and so they finally ate of it. Well, when they did, they realized, all right, that's it. And the Bible speaks of it in this way. In the cool of the day, God comes walking through the garden. And He's looking for Adam and Eve. Every other day, He comes in and they hang out. right? They're nowhere to be found because they're hiding. Because they know this. What does God do? He calls out, Adam, Adam, where are you? I didn't realize how God never stops calling my name. Even in the times when I couldn't hear him, I wasn't listening. God is always pursuing me. The other passage of scripture that's really become so important to us is in Proverbs where it says, guard your heart. Above all else is where he starts. Above everything else, guard your heart. For out of it flow all the issues of life. All of life happens based on what's going on in our hearts. We live from our hearts. We speak from our hearts. And when our hearts get broken, we tend to live out of our broken heart. And you can hear that in the way people speak and what they have to say if you're listening. So tonight, as we kind of share a little bit of our stories and goofy stuff, whatever, came out and how we came together and how God moved through our lives, I want you to be listening as you listen to our stories and maybe think about your own, how God pursued us or pursues you, and what have you done with your heart? What have we done with our hearts? Because it's not always pretty. So with that, Robin, you want to tell us a little bit about your childhood, like, before high school, kind of get us up to speed on that?
Absolutely. So I can remember as a little girl, we went to church every Sunday, twice on Sunday. My mom had an amazing voice. I didn't get her talent in that area, unfortunately. But we even went to church on Wednesday, and I was just so in love with Jesus. I got to play Mary in the play, and I got to hold baby Jesus, and my heart was just enamored by Jesus. And that's me in the blonde hair as a little girl. And there's probably another picture right after this. Yep, in front of the church, probably on Easter, because we had all of my cousins there. And when I turned 9 years old, my parents told me they were getting a divorce. And at that point, Jesus was no longer allowed in my life. My mom got together with my stepdad, who was an atheist, and God was no longer allowed in my life. Not only were we not allowed to have a Bible in the house, we were not even allowed to mention God in our house. And so at that point, all studies, all connections, all teachings of God, I missed a lot of years. But I gotta tell you, I had friends who invited me to VBS, and I still was able to hear little things that I needed to hear, because one day I would need those things. And I can remember my dad picking me up every Sunday or every other Sunday and bring me home, and it was so hard when he dropped us off. But one day, I was sitting there on a Friday night waiting for my dad to pick me up, and he never showed. He never showed. And I didn't understand why. I just knew he didn't love me anymore. I thought he didn't love me anymore. And I would often lie in bed wondering, why wasn't I enough? What was it about me that my dad didn't want me anymore? So let Bob talk a little while I regather myself here.
Well, So, like Robin, growing up, I was in a Christian family. I was, you know, we always went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and choir practice. So I was a little kid running around the church, counting the tiles, doing whatever. You know, I was just always in church. We had a good family. I was by far the youngest of all my siblings. So and we've got some pictures of just kind of normal me childhood. Now that card's really a lot older than I am. Okay, so that wasn't really that. Anyway, that's me. Keep going. There I am. Yeah, keep moving. You can move right past that. There I am. You can't tell, but I got a golf club in my head. It's like hand is like a big thing. I'm actually holding it wrong, so go figure. Baseball. These pictures are kind of blurry, I guess, on the screen, so that's fine. I was the only one to get my mom to ride a snowmobile, so we did snowmobiles. I had motorcycles. We had go-karts growing up. We had this old antique 1910 Ford
that shows his
Model
age.
T, and so. Yeah, no, I'm not really driving it at that age, but we always had. Oh man, this was my favorite Halloween costume, the Man from U.N.C.L.E. So, sorry, it's all you can't see the head.
It's old.
Yeah, my favorite Christmas toy, my X-15. That was the most amazing toy in the world. You rode it, and it had a stick thing, and you could spin it around. Of course, I'm playing in the box. So I want you to look at this picture before they move on. This is my family, so I'm the little guy, okay? I want you to notice something. Look at those ears. Want a closer look? Let's go to the next slide. You'll get a real good closer look. Look at those ears. Now you can imagine in grade school, you probably could tell the things I was named, right? Monkey ears, Dumbo, elephant ears, yeah. Okay, that was me. That's what I got ridiculed for. So let's move on from that picture, please. I don't know what's next, but hopefully something a little better. Oh, shoot. I wish you could see this whole thing because I'm like way taller than my dad. So this picture here, we'll just hang on here for a minute. So 8th grade, the end of my 8th grade year, just before I started in high school, this picture was taken down in Miami Beach, Florida. I caught the shark, and there's a whole story to that. It's really a miracle that I caught this hammerhead shark. Okay, it's also a miracle that anybody would ever talk to me because I remember Mom saying I didn't have any shorts, and I said I'll just cut off my jeans. And my mom offered to do it, and I go, no, I got it. Check out the jeans, the shorts. I mean, not even close. Come on. Of course, the Kiss T-shirt. That was what we were doing then. So on this day, I thought this was the best day of my life. I caught a shark. That's an awesome thing. 1 week later from the day this picture was taken, we went back home. I went back home early, but I went back home, started school. My dad got up one morning and said, I'm going to be working another job. The reality is he was going to live with another woman in another city. And that was my dad for years. It killed me because my sister had just graduated from high school. So now I'm the only one left with my mom. So why am I not important enough to stick around for her, right? I'll tell you what, the lie hurt more than the abandonment. Just tell me the truth, right? I was already suffering because earlier that year, my parents didn't know this. Earlier that year, of course, my dad had been having this affair, so his emotional connection with us was really kind of torn from us. And I didn't realize I was suffering from that or feeling that. I felt like I just don't have what it takes to be a man. I'm not enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not courageous enough. And so I tied a rope at the end of my bed and stood on the footboard of my bed and tied it around my neck. And I was going to kill myself. I thought, that's just no way out. the only thing that stopped me in my mind was I was too afraid to kill myself because suicide was go to hell. I didn't want to go to hell. I know that's stupid, but that's the only reason. That's the only reason. And I lay back in the bed crying. And I thought, there's got to be something I can offer. And the only thing I could come up with is, I'm smart. I can think. And so I locked into a bitter, I'll show them. I'll show them. This is all I got to hang on to. And so real quickly, I went from the greatest day of my life to like one of the worst days, and starting of my high school time without a father in the home. Mom just weeping at night, you know, over the loss, not knowing what to do. Suddenly I'm the man of the house now. I got to fix everything, figure that out. I didn't know, you know, because all I knew was I'd rather just play sports. That's all I wanted to do. A real shift in my life and in my heart. Robin, tell us a little bit about in high school. We've only got a few minutes, but.
Yeah, sure. It'll be really quick. So in high school, because I never felt like I was enough, I had to prove to myself that I was enough. And I threw myself into sports. Anything that I could get involved in, softball. Softball was my go-to. Track, volleyball, cheerleading. I was in band, I was in choir. Even though I couldn't sing, I was still in choir. I was involved in everything. But I had friends around me who would invite me to youth group, who would invite me to church on Sunday. So still getting little bits and pieces of God in my life. And I didn't realize that God was continuing to speak to me.
So just every once in a while, a friend would invite you to a youth group that you weren't really connected to a church.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Yep. He would let us go. Or maybe he didn't know. I don't know. But then my sisters both got actively involved in the church when they were in high school. We were just not allowed to speak about it when we were at home. So, yeah.
In high school, the first couple of years are really difficult. And I'm going to rephrase this. As a junior, I really gave my heart to the Lord. I felt like if he can use me, because my friend who had been going to church with me said one night late while I was sleeping over at his place, he says, Bob, I want what you've got. I'm like, you don't want what I got. I'm just playing with it. You know, I was in and out with God. Didn't know really how to connect. And so, but I knew, you know, how to pray him and prayer of salvation. And that night I'm like, okay, God, if you can use me when I'm not really even engaged fully, I don't know what that means. What can you do with me? And so I gave my life to the Lord, and it was shortly after that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a youth pastor. I wanted to tell other teens what I had found, you know, and so that's what I did. You know, I got married, and I thought this is forever. And getting married was difficult for me because I was so afraid I was going to go like 20 years and then quit. Have somebody quit on me, you know, like my dad did. I'm like, I don't really want anything to do with that. That was the path that God had chosen for me. Well, I don't think God chose it for me. I think my wife chose to step into sin, step into relationships. And she walked away from the Lord, walked away from the family, got involved in addictions and online. And so eventually she met somebody in Texas and who was Mr. Wonderful. And so she moved to Texas and left me alone with my 4 children. And I was broken. My church didn't do what this church does. It didn't surround me. It said, can't see how somebody can be in leadership and go through what you're going through, so we're going to have to let you go. So I'd lost my career. I'd lost my marriage. And that's when I moved here with my 4 kids to start something new. I didn't know what. I stepped into that. I didn't know she lived here, which was a good thing. So let's talk a little bit about how we met through some friends. I think our first contact was I emailed you.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm a good writer, so you got to use your strengths, guys. You know. And I think I put in there, you seem like a very captivating woman. I think that was probably, you know,
Yes.
yeah, I had something. So anyway, we talked on the phone for a while, and then we finally decided to meet, and we sat down in a restaurant. And I mean, I was trying to be funny. I'm funny, okay? I can be.
Yes.
And I was, you know, trying to be, you know, and she was just so quiet. I'm like, oh, man, I'm bombing here. You know, I'm like, I got no game whatsoever, you know? And I just figured it was going to be over with because you were just so quiet.
Yeah, about that. I was quiet because I was afraid. I was scared. I look back on it now, and I think of myself as the woman at the well. I was not wanting to allow him to know who I really was because I was afraid he was going to run. See, I had been divorced 3 times, 3 failed marriages, and when my second marriage failed, it really, really devastated me. I tried everything I could to make him happy even after he said he wanted a divorce. I thought there was something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? So I went on a diet and I started losing a lot of weight and getting attention from all kinds of people about how well I looked. And the diet kept going and kept going. In 4 months, I went from 150 pounds to 98. I became anorexic and looked in the mirror at 98 pounds and saw fat. I had a warped sense of what I looked like. The anorexia turned into bulimia, and when I met Bob, I was still suffering after 10 years. It was the only thing. My life was so out of control. It was the only thing I could control. And it was a part of me. It became a part of me. And when I met Bob, I saw a godly man, and I'm like, why would a godly man want me? This woman who's been married 3 times. I was in a relationship with a married man at the time. Not at the time. I had just left. We met in 2008. In the beginning of 2008, I was asking lots of questions about God. And my daughter had a friend at the age of 20 die. And I thought, standing in my kitchen thinking, I don't want to live my life like I'm living and know that at the end of my life that I'm not going to heaven. That's what I felt. And at that moment, I fell to my knees and I surrendered my life to Christ. And then 6 months later, I meet Bob. But I still had lots of issues, right? Issues that I needed to deal with, ex-husbands that I needed to forgive, my father I needed to forgive, all these men in my life that I really needed to forgive before I could really step into a good, strong relationship with him. And we became friends. We became really good friends. And he would push me, but you know Bob, he asks you lots of questions and gives you lots of challenges, and those challenges brought bits and pieces of surrendering forgiveness. I now have a relationship with my father. Now I know my father was ill. My father was not, he's 7th grade education. He's not a very smart man. And he couldn't handle dropping us off on Sundays. I didn't know that. Now I do. And I've forgiven the relationships that I've had in the past, but most importantly, forgiven myself for stepping into areas of my life that I didn't need to step into, for thinking I was God. I needed to control my life. And, that day that I surrendered, going to read you a scripture here real quick. I know we've got to wrap up, but this is really important. And you guys know this scripture. One of them is popular. As soon as I find it. I need to talk for a moment.
It's amazing how God prepared me to love Robin. God asked me with my first wife, will you have the love of Hosea for your wife? And he asked me that 3 times, and I went, well, sure, but nothing's going to happen. And then things happened. And I held out reconciliation to her for years. And I learned how to love in the face of unreturned love. I learned what it was to love unselfishly. And what I didn't know was I was in training. God used that to prepare me to be able to love this woman who'd been hurt by so many and so deeply. And to accept her, just as she is, and know that God takes us right where we're at. But he doesn't leave us there. God's always intervening. He's always pursuing. And if we're not careful, we'll live out of our broken hearts instead of going to the healer of our hearts.
Yeah, so I found it. Of course. Okay, so Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And that scripture somehow came to me the day that I surrendered. But here's the thing, there's more. Guys, you know that commercial? There's more. And I wish I would have read this then, because after that it says, "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from captivity." That is amazing, guys. That is so amazing. And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not telling you my story to give my sin glory, but to show you God's glory and his grace. Because without God, there's no way that I'd be sitting in front of you guys today, totally in love with Jesus. And because I'm in love with Jesus, I've been able to heal and move forward and move on. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, guys. As you can tell, there's always 60 years. Do it in 15 minutes. So at this time, you guys are free to go to your small group. If you're here tonight and you don't have a small group, come on up toward the stage.